Well, we're going to go on and get started because it's after 12, and there's lots of questions that we have pre-prepared. So whenever you want to get up and get food, go for it. If you want your own 2-liter, apparently you can do that too. So all of this is getting recorded on Zoom, so some people might be signing in through that, so we might occasionally hear some questions from the iPad, so don't freak out, it's not voices in your head, it's from the iPad. And then we'll have this recorded and we'll get it uploaded onto YouTube so that if you want to refer back to it later, if you have any questions, or if any of us want to use it in the class, we'll be able to do that. So what we're going to do is all of us have some experience. All of us were psychology majors, and so we've all taken different paths. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then open the floor for questions for any of you all that have one at any point. Please feel free to participate. Any questions before we get started? No? Any from the panel before we get started? Okay, great. So we're going to start down the end, and I'm just going to have you introduce yourself, tell a little bit about what you do now and their path of it today.
My name is Mark Deaton. I'll contract work with Crossroads Counseling in Georgetown and Riverview Counseling in Frankfort. I also have my own practice, Deaton and Deaton Counseling and Consulting, which has offices in Georgetown, Lexington, and Frankfurt. And we do a host of stuff from outpatient groups and intensive outpatients of every type of individual counseling. But there is, it's me, my wife Melissa, and Rebecca Dio involved with Deaton and Deaton. My qualifications, I'll give you that. I apologize for the candy, I got a tickle in my throat. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor, licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor, autonomous battery intervention program provider for the domestic violence population, adult peer support specialist, certified crisis first responder, state DUI assessor, have a master's in professional counseling, and everything goes right, I'll have my PhD in addiction psychology by my. I've worked in outpatient substance abuse. I've worked in residential substance abuse, short-term and long-term. I love residential. I've worked in individual counseling with substance abuse, trauma, depression, anxiety, personality disorders, schizophrenia, bipolar, pretty much the whole host, except I don't work with children under the age of 12, and I don't work with sex offenders. Those are my two populations I don't work with, but the people I work with those. So we cover basically every area. I've been doing this for about 10, 11 years now. That's me.
Well, I'm Gina Dare. Everybody know I'm here as a professor. I'm also a licensed clinical psychologist. And in terms of my clinical work, I have worked in a brain injury unit at Cornell. I also worked with juvenile justice programs in Indiana and near Chicago, also in Washington, D.C. I worked for the district court in Washington, D.C. and did psychological evaluations with them. And then I also counsel here. So I have counseling services at our university. The populations I've worked with mostly have been severe emotional disturbance when I worked in Baltimore and in D.C. Also like some brain injury and personality disorders as well. Primarily working with younger children and adolescents, and then some adults. So I've done family therapy as well and couples counseling. But the main, I would say, really where a lot of my research was, as well as clinical work, it was in terms of violent behavior, violent offenders, also with domestic violence families, and the effects of conflict on children. And so, pretty much my background.
I'm Edie McClellan, and I'm also a professor here at Midway. And I am an example, I guess, of if you go to graduate school and don't go into clinical or counseling, your choices are pretty much to teach or do research. And here at Midway, I'm primarily a teacher, which is fine with me. I always liked starting research and finishing it, but I didn't like the in-between. That was not for me. It was long and tedious. But I have a PhD in developmental psychology, specifically lifespan developmental psychology. And that is from West Virginia University, which was the first lifespan developmental program anywhere. We were the first to create that program. Before the 70s, developmental psychology was equated with child psychology. They thought, given what not only Freud and others said, but the thought was you didn't really develop much once you get out of childhood. You just, you mature and then it's it. But developmental psychology has expanded that into the adult lifespan and also gerontology. In the 60s, there was a big movement to study aging. And in the field of sociology, gerontology began to spring out. And of course, the psychologists kind of jumped on that. So I'm from a from a program that studies the entire lifespan. I actually have a certificate in gerontology. It's one of my specialty areas. So my path here was I started as an undergrad at UK. I'm from Lexington originally, so close by. And I really didn't know what I wanted to be. I picked history as a major because I didn't want to be undecided. And my fall of my freshman year at UK, I took it for the psych and I just fell in love with it. And that was my chosen field. This is everything I'm interested in, which is everything. I was really interested in English, almost majored in English, and anthropology and sociology, and I wanted to major in everything, but I couldn't. I did end up with a minor in Spanish, so use that a little bit. So I went on to graduate school because I knew I didn't want to be a clinical or counselor person. I thought about it, and I was like, no, I think I want to teach. So went on to graduate school, got my PhD at West Virginia University, and I lived in Ohio for a while and other places that I ended up back. Glad to be at Midway.
So I'm Mackenzie Haynes, and I can say I'm a professor here too. And I run the career office here at Midway University. And my undergraduate was in psychology as well. And I also I didn't want to do clinical necessarily, but I wasn't sure what to do. And so towards my junior year of undergrad, I started trying to figure out if I was going to go the research route or do something else. And then right before I graduated my undergrad, I finally decided that I was I didn't want to go on to the road yet, so I went to go get a master's. And my focus was in college student personnel with a concentration in school counseling at University of Louisville. And so that's where the route that I did. And so I went into school counseling and then found my passion in school counseling actually in career counseling. That was my favorite thing that I did while I was there. I have had a couple different careers so far. I worked as a civilian contractor for the National Guard, providing education services and career services for recruiting. And then I was a school counselor for 3 years for middle and high school, and then got the opportunity to come here and work and run the career development here for Midway University. That's the process. So now you know a little bit about us and the very different pathways that all of us have created, even though we all started with where you all are now with psychology. And then you see the very different paths that we all take. So does anybody have a question to start out the panel? Otherwise, I'll share ours. No? Okay.
I have a question for them. How many of you are psych majors? Okay, because that helps to know which classes you'll be taking. Potential psych majors or just interest lines? Minors? Okay. All right. Awesome.
All right, so one of our questions for the panel is, what is your number one piece of advice for a student in their first year, and what about someone who's graduating in May? And this can have to do with psychology, or it can just have to do with professional development. Whatever you feel.
I saw these ahead of time, but I'm still not prepared. It's changing. Do you have an idea, Gina?
First piece of advice I would say for student in their first year is to really explore and enjoy college life. I mean, there's so much diversity that you may have not been exposed to. And if you go into psychology, there's a real need to respect diversity and understand, that people are different from you. So just meeting people and trying different majors, taking classes in different areas is so important. It broadens your mind. And then like you even mentioned, that some of us, if you didn't take psychology at first, actually I was a music major first. I thought I would be an opera singer. I sang opera when I was 14, and that's what I thought I would do. And yeah, and then later it was like I loved the psychology of music and the psychology of theater of a role, and it kind of led me that way, and there were other interests. So you never know. I mean, you could take a lot of different classes first. That would be my first piece of advice, first year. The rest is like, when somebody's graduating in May. Well, I actually would like to say before that, start to, like,
If you're gonna go to
yeah,
grad
if
school.
you're gonna go to
think
grad
about
school, even by the end of your sophomore year, you need to start thinking about what populations you're interested in, or what, if you want to do research, or if you're interested in clinical, because it's important with who you work, in terms of like in a lab, internship experiences, all that. You get recommendations that you might need from your work that will be very important if you go to grad school, and you get the experience in research or in a clinical setting. That will be impressive and actually give you a little bit of a leg up when it's highly competitive when you apply to graduate schools. And then some schools may be only allowing 2 students in for that new school year. So you have to be competitive. And so I'd say by the end of the sophomore year, and then try to get your applications out to graduate schools that fall semester of your senior year. Be ready for that at the beginning of the senior year. Start thinking of the programs that you want to send or get applications for, and then get those out and be ready by this time. So yeah. So by May, hopefully we'll have got a response from graduate school, and you can just enjoy graduation. Right? That would be the best.
I would say that they also would need to see Mackenzie and talk to her about career services.
Yes.
Because if you're not going to graduate school, and the majority of psychology majors do not go to graduate school, 75% I think it's the number. They don't go on to graduate school in psychology. You're going to have to find a job, and she would be the person to go see. And before then you need to make those connections and get those references, even for a regular job, regardless of what it is. The freshman year or first year, I don't know. I was so clueless as a freshman. I don't know if I would have even followed much advice someone gave me. Your classes, you kind of have to take the general elective or general education requirements. So you don't get a lot of choices right there. But if you are going to take intro to psych like I did, going back, I wish I had paid more attention to all the different fields, because in a way it's kind of overwhelming. And trying to study them is one thing, but think about them in terms of a career, you would kind of approach them a little differently too. And maybe I would have learned more if I had known right away that that's what my major was going to be. If you don't know, that's fine. It's no big deal, but
You can always come back to school.
yeah, add it on. How about you, Mark? Do you have any advice?
I would say for the first year, learn as much about the human brain as you can, and experience as much regular life as you can, because regardless, if you stay in this field, regardless of what area you go into, at the end of the day, your patients are going to be dealing with how they perceive themselves and others in regular life. And the more you know about regular life and how the brain rolls with that, the better you're going to be at your job. If you've committed to this, if you've made up your mind, this is what I want to do, I wouldn't leave much time in between bachelor, graduate school. I would try to get it all while it's fresh up here, because a lot of the stuff that you're going to need to know, a lot of the exams, the information is kind of repetitive. So the earlier you do it, the less you have to go back and refresh yourself on a lot of that. Somebody getting ready to graduate, get your feet wet doing this as often as you can. Volunteer opportunities, what field you want to go into, or what area of this field. Reach out to people that are already doing it. Intern, volunteer, weekend, wherever you can get in and sample it. If they'll even let you come in and shadow them, great. Every bit of that experience that you get.
We have something similar with the research, the community service class, where students are required to do a voluntary in the community sort of practicum. We call it practicum, but it's really, they find a site where they volunteer their time. And it's to get out in the real world. And the only qualification is that some aspect of psychology should be something that they do. And that's a very broad description. Had students counsel or follow shadow counselors at public schools. They've been at alcohol treatment places, and a lot of times they do a lot of initial face-to-face stuff there, that they learn how to do intakes, for example, sometimes, and that's useful, just how to interact with people initially. So,
Now, if you're interested in going the counseling or clinical routes, there are things you cannot learn through a textbook. You have to be in the settings, dynamics, personalities, all types of things. It's one thing to read it, it's another thing when it's in vivo, it's a live setting, and you have to think of risks, and you have to, like working in a juvenile detention center, there were things that I became aware of that I'm always aware of. Safety protocols, risk assessments.
and then it stuck with you.
It stayed with me my entire life, but it has saved my life too. So, yeah, the sooner you can get those types of experiences, better.
I agree. I think the information that I learned in my beginning psychology courses benefit me now in my real life. Outside of even in my professional role, where I'm always constantly trying to watch and see how people are reacting in my office. When I'm out and about just doing life, whether it's at Kroger or dealing with my children, learning the developmental is really helpful, and just kind of realizing how I'm reacting to the world and how people are perceiving the world. And that's based upon things that I started learning in my freshman Psych 101 class at U of L, and then continuing to kind of develop through that. And so that's one of the interesting things for me is, even though I'm not technically in a counseling field or in a psychology field right now, the things that I learned in all of those classes are benefiting me in my everyday life and how I interact with people. Because I went this route because I was like, oh, if I know psychology, I know how to control people's minds, so then I can get them to do what I want. Great. Which actually is perception. But it kind of does work a little.
Yeah, you can use it for good or bad.
Yeah, definitely use it for good or for evil. But so a lot of the things I learned I use in my everyday life. So that idea of learning about the brain really early, I think is really, really helpful, really interesting. It's good to realize.
Take physio.
Yes, take physio.
All right, so
I have a question.
go for it.
So I'm double majoring in nursing and psychology. So are there more opportunities available for me for doing both of them? Like as far as like if I decided to specialize in psych nursing, like is there more opportunity for that, or would I have to go beyond my bachelor's? So.
Well, it depends if you want to be an independent clinician. If you wanted to, like, you'd have to be licensed or certified if you want to do like counseling, or where you are the primary provider for someone, and that requires graduate level training, or but you could be supervised by someone. So if you don't mind being like supervised and they sign off and they oversee your work, then you could still do work for those. But if you want to be like autonomous of your own practice, and Mark and I were talking earlier about even with insurance companies, that you may, even if you're licensed or certified, if you don't have a certain degree, you may not be billable, which means you wouldn't be able to get the contracts with insurance companies.
Laws and regulations.
Yeah. So it just depends on how far you want to go in terms of like autonomous functioning, you have your own clinic.
Maybe ask Dr. Kitchen, since that's her background.
Okay. Yeah.
Psychiatric nursing.
Psychiatric nursing, yeah. But definitely your classes in both will help you greatly.
It's going to help you.
Because you have somebody that's physiological training, the medical training that will really assist you and see that. Because this is one of the things we always have to look at too, not just environment, right? Mm-hmm. Nature and nurture. So so both will help.
Some of the best assignments I had in my classes were when I had to research like the regulations for the license I didn't have yet. So you might want to look at the regs and look at what the insurance companies require as far as, what are your options, what you want to do, and what you can get paid for, because at the end of the day, you got to eat. And see what you have to be able to do that. That was a big help for me.
Any other questions out there yet? All right. Thinking about your life right now, your professional career, what was the best day of your professional career to this point? What was the hardest day of your professional career to this point?
I'll go first. The best day, I would say, was when I won the Teacher of the Year award. I was very proud of that. That was one of my kind of, unspoken goals as a psychology professor, was to win that. And for several years, we did not have that award. We had stopped offering it to faculty, so the fact that they brought it back and I won it a year or two after that, I was very proud of that. So, yeah, because that meant, my teaching, I was kind of good. I must be okay. Because students pick who gets that. It's all student nominated and voted for. So that would be more than something from peers, actually. It's from students. The other one, I might defer that one because they probably don't want to hear that sad story.
Okay. Best day, I want to think best day of my professional career is I won the teaching award too.
We did.
We really did. It was
Different
wonderful.
years.
Yeah, different years, but that was fantastic. It was a wonderful experience.
And a great surprise.
Yes, a real surprise.
Because they keep it from you. They don't tell you.
They don't
you're
tell you,
getting
you
it.
have no idea, you'll be the ones. That was fantastic. And also because students, you're nominated by students, that meant so much. And then I guess the other thing is when passing my licensing exam and getting my license, because it all together from starting with the bachelor's and in the graduate school and the postdoc years of supervision. I mean, after you get your graduate degree, you're postdoc, probably, and 12 years, 13 years of working on it, so that was a great accomplishment. I can't really say like the hardest days because I can't say anything about the individual situations, but in general, I would say that you are human. Your empathy is one of your gifts, but it can also, your heart can be broken. Something to keep in mind as a counselor, that you're not a robot. And there are going to be times that certain situations will happen, and sometimes you think you've heard everything, and then you'll hear something else. And so there are times I can think of that just very, very heartbreaking situations. You have to go through that too, and have a
Seek a professional.
You have to be professional, and you have to seek out maybe another colleague. Then that's always encouraged to talk about some things, because you will experience really difficult situations too, life stories.
Yeah, self-care is extremely important because regardless of the boundaries you set, at some point you will take this home with you. The worst day was, I would deal with a lot of overdoses, but the worst day was a particular overdose story that I won't tell you about. But it was a client that I've been working with for a while. Self-care is important. You got to have an outlet. You got to have somebody to talk to. You got to have a way to vent. You got to have a way to let go. Do your best to leave it work. But my best day doing this, there was this big 6'5", 300+ pound guy that came into rehab that had been in prison for about 10 years. And this guy was just stonewall. He straight face, the counselor, I was the lead counselor of this facility. My counselor that he was with, they weren't getting anywhere. Every day it was a fight to get this guy to talk about everything. And I had this guy in group, and a group that I was doing. And we connected on jail talk. I started talking about some stuff that I knew about jail, and it connected with me. The other counselor didn't have that experience. And he started talking to me, and he started opening up to me. And some of that wall started breaking down, and I started challenging him in group. Fast forward 30 days, this guy walks in the room on the day that he's leaving. Just 30 days later, he walks in the room. He walks up to me in front of everybody. There's about 80 clients in there. He walks in, he grabs me, crying, picks me up off the floor and says, "Thank you so much," before he leaves to go work wherever it is to go. And I get a lot of repeat clients. Usually the ones I don't see and don't hear about means they're doing well. Because I usually either hear something or they come back to me. Haven't heard a word out of this guy, so I just assume he's doing well. That was my very best.
I would think, just to add one more thing, since you're double majoring with nursing, that what you just said about self-care, and you also would apply to that. Anytime you're doing any kind of care with someone, you're gonna have to figure out ways to lead part of it or deal
So
with
how
it.
do you guys do that? Like, what has been most effective for you guys? Like, separating yourself and realizing, like, okay, that's work. Like, I have to leave it at work.
Practice.
Sometimes it's just experience and that's another reason it's so important to get experience in different clinical settings. First time you experience something, it's harder, right? And then as you gain expertise and you see more people and you learn more about treatment and you have good supervision, supervisors are very important. Then it's not as difficult, you know how to handle it. So that's one thing self-care is to get as much experience as you can and good supervision. But now, like music, I mean, I still sing, I still play piano, I teach music, you know, at home. It's a great relief.
She's in a band.
So yeah, I'm a rock band. yeah, it's definitely healing. It's totally different. Yeah, have to come and see us. Anagram, that's the name.
I think you should do bring in the glass.
Oh, is that?
I think you should bring in the glass.
Just bring them the glass. Maybe last day.
Yeah. You performed at Vespers?
I did.
Was he there too?
Yeah, well, the band played for Parents' Day weekend a couple of years ago.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's fun. It really heals, so. And faith, as a person, faith helps.
A good support group, that include at least some people that you don't work with, that you can get to. I get around some of these people that we get together on a regular basis, and I'm probably about as middle school as you get when I get around. Very immature, and we all, you know, do go out to eat or we get together. Music is a big thing with us too, playing both or whatever. And just trying to get about, you know, leave, not doing that, not shop talk today, not doing any of that. I run a lot. That helps get me out of my head about this stuff. Stupid videos on YouTube, get caught up in. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's odd stuff on YouTube. Yeah, they'll just take your mind off of stuff. I like to write, just whether it makes sense or not, whether it's a journal or you're writing a book or just whatever, putting it on paper. And it doesn't have to mean anything to anybody but you. Just stuff to get it out of your head. Escape route, healthy escape route.
I had a certain spot on my drive home that I purposely picked out, and it's like, this is my stop point. Like, after I pass this exit, I'm not allowed to think about work anymore. I have to turn that off. And so whatever that meant I had to do, is it meant I had to call somebody to have a conversation, or it meant I had to make my brain start thinking about something else. But as always, I allowed myself to leave work thinking about work, but after I hit a certain exit on 64, I had to turn it off at that point. And from that point on, I was not allowed to think about it. Now, it still came up, still popped back in my head, but it did at least give me some boundaries to give myself permission to leave work at work for a little bit, which was really helpful on a lot of those days. All right, next question. If a student wanted to follow in your footsteps, what should they do tomorrow to get started? And or what should they do that you didn't do, or what should they not do that you did? Well, mine is taking a break during your master's. Don't do that. Do not take a break.
Between undergrad?
Oh, no, during like the middle of my master's.
Oh, in the middle.
I took a break.
I'd say that's you could avoid it at least.
I did like a year of my master's, and then I took a break to be more professional. And then it took me that much longer.
Professionalized yourself right out of it.
Yep.
So what about taking a break between undergrad and
If it's a growth opportunity, I think it could be worth it. If it scares you enough to put you back into school, that helps.
Yeah, that's good.
I think a lot of grad programs, they don't look down at that. If you apply to, and one issue we have with students, we give them advice, is to apply to several places. And the students say, I just have 3 I want to go to. Well, you need to go 5 to 10,
Yeah.
because especially clinical,
Oh, yeah.
also counseling, you may or may not get in. You need to apply to as many as you can in order to increase your odds. So if they apply to those 3 and they don't get in, it's okay to take a year of work and be hopefully in the field somewhere related to it, and then reapply to grad school the next year. And a lot of programs do not look down at that. They think that's, fine. You say, I worked for this year, and now I'm really ready to get back. I want to get my master's. I'm for sure, I know this is what I want. And so they look positively at that. And I would say avoid any breaks in grad school as well. Because I saw some students do that, and they didn't come back. So it's good you came back.
Yeah, it's kind of lose traction. Oh.
Oh, I forgot that. I took over your question. One thing I would do, while I was at UK, I took a lot of research credit, and I worked with professors doing research. And once I figured out I wanted to go to grad school, I knew that would look good on any application, because grad programs want to see somebody who has gone through the process and knows it and is familiar with it. And we require students to do a senior project, and it can be a study or not. But even if you don't do a research study, or you're at a school that maybe doesn't have that as an option, you can also assist people doing research. Bigger schools like UK offer that. And I did that 2 summers in a row, and I earned elective credit. It was elective, but I got great experience doing that. And that showed the graduate program that I applied to, all of them, that I was familiar with the research protocol, and I had run subjects. I had done a lot of the things that they were expecting me to do in grad school. And if they see that you've done it, that's going to also go a long ways toward them realizing you're going to be able to do it in grad school.
And for the research, there are multiple big programs across the country that offer paid summer research opportunities. So you can go for 10 weeks and you can do research for the summer, and they normally pay you a stipend and they cover your housing. So I would definitely recommend, and those applications go live every fall for the following summer. And so I would highly recommend getting involved in those because it looks great for grad school.
You won't get rich, but you get experience and they get cheap labor, basically. It's a win-win.
Yeah, I have to agree. That's, I think, what it made such a big difference, was getting research and experience in doing my own research project. And then if you think about it on the graduate school's side, and you think these are people who are going to get new people in if they want to work in their lab, it makes sense that they're going to want someone who understands research instead of someone that they have to teach from square one. So, if you look and you try to think, what would an employer want? Well, grad schools, if they're doing research, they're going to want someone who has that background. The other thing I've seen is really helpful is getting clinical experience too. If you work at different settings, that shows if you want to go that route, then you have some knowledge that you're coming with, and instead of having to start at square one.
Like different populations.
Yeah, like if working at Eastern State, or there's a number of hospitals, they accept interns there, that you see different types of diagnoses, different ages of patients, and you work with in different milieux, so all of that's really important too. But like Edie was saying that, or Dr. McClellan was saying that There are other schools like UK. We've had a student who just was accepted to a graduate program who did her work at a lab over at UK. She wanted to have that research experience and
For that community
for that
service
community,
class.
yeah. And she did some things that it was great. And she just got her acceptance, I think, this last week, to the university of her first choice. So she's really good.
So I'm coming on my junior year, so it's about prime time for internships and everything. But what if you need a job to, maintain going to school, you need to maintain your athletic scholarship and everything?
Yeah.
You can't really do something or you just
Well,
and that's something you should prioritize.
it would depend on what you're working, well, whatever job, like you could get a stipend at some of these programs in the summer, and they pay a stipend, they'll pay you. So if you just did for summer, but you've got that experience, that would help.
For the 410 though, it's not paid.
Yeah, 410, yeah, the class 410, the community services is volunteer. But if you did want some paid work, you could do that in the summer and then not work at the other job, which would help. It should be, I mean, even if you can get some experience, even if you had 10 hours a week, 10 hours a week, you're working in a lab environment, and you can get another letter of recommendation from.
Well, Eastern takes volunteers, and even if you worked a few weekends a month there as a volunteer, that would be a great experience. Just that.
And keep in mind, volunteer work looks excellent on a resume.
Yes, it does.
You get more letters of recommendation by whoever's supervising you.
You do.
You're not just getting the Midway people, you're getting the other people that have actually seen you in the community doing things.
I think it's always helpful to think if you were on a selection committee at a graduate school, what type of applicants would you be looking for? If you have a clinical program or a research program, it's just like an employer, who would you hire? Who would you choose? So if somebody has absolutely no experience and they've not done that, and there are other applicants who do, and they also have high GPAs. Everyone has high GPAs. Everybody has the same GRE scores.
Everybody goes to grad school smart. You're on the same level.
Yeah.
You're no longer the smart one. Trust me.
What's the difference? What makes one person more attractive? Can hit the ground running pretty much, come into the lab and do the work. So that kind of helps, I think. The other thing I would say is start thinking, if you're like a junior or sophomore now, start thinking of the populations that you would like to work with if you wanted to go into counseling. Like I said, was interested in violence and children, particularly violent children, and started running all the literature and research with that. Then got into a domestic violence lab, learned more about couples, and then moved on to graduate school where I looked at family, the entire family unit. So everything was like a stepping stone. But my focus was still in the same types of populations. That helps. So work on your identity. What is your professional identity? What might you be an expert in? Start doing that soon.
And typically in clinical, the programs are two types, child or adult. So it helps just to decide if you're going to do adults only or if you're going to do children only. And sometimes you like adolescents and they can go back and forth, but they're usually considered child. Some programs specialize just adolescents.
Starting to get an idea.
But if you know nothing else, at least decide, do I want to work with kids or not? Do I want to work with adults only? That's a good place to start.
And as for should you prioritize an internship over everything else? Not necessarily, but it could be something that could make a difference later. It just really depends on your situation and the path that you need to take.
If you're a busy
And I can talk
athlete,
about that.
Yeah, if you're a busy athlete, though, graduate programs are going to think that's great because they're going to see you can juggle things. So in internships, might be taking on too much, but if you're already doing all these other things, and you're working full time and you're going to school full time, that's impressive if you could get through an undergraduate program. And they notice that. They're not going to take that lightly.
What did you say?
Oh, one question. If somebody wanted to follow in my footsteps, come hang out with me in one of my drug groups. Because that's a lot of times that's anything but textbook.
Yes, I
So
did.
they're all
Stan.
structured and everybody's so nice and well spoken. I've never had one of those groups since I've been doing this. Yeah, if somebody want to follow in my footsteps, find the nastiest, dirtiest drug rehab that is in this state and go arrange a tour of it and see if you can sit in on some of the groups, because that's the population at some point you're going to get. Whether you're doing drug counseling group or individual, private practice, rehab facility, that's the population at some point that's going to walk through your door. So you need to see the worst of it. Because what I tell everybody that goes into the drug and alcohol field is you either love it or hate it. There's no middle ground. So you can kind of get a feel for that early on if you find a place to go in and get a view of it, what it's like. What not to do? Don't argue with management.
That's a good rule for every job.
At the end of the day, your priority is the well-being of your client, not to be a lobbyist at the place you work to change their policies. So you need to be able to be open, aware, and very smart, very knowledgeable of all the parameters, all the techniques, all the therapy stuff that goes with what you do. Because when you're told, no, we do not allow you to treat that, then you have to be smart enough not to argue with management and look at what you are allowed to treat and see if what you're thinking needs to be treated falls under a different category. Does that make sense?
Make it work, basically.
Yeah, make it work, which falls under evidence-based practices, what's considered evidence-based. You don't have to try to convince somebody over top of you that they are wrong. Because at the end of the day, what can you do for your client that is within the scope of practice of where you work and still do what you feel needs to be done for your client?
Is there any piece of technology or any research publication, say it that way, that the students should learn about or follow to be prepared?
APA manual.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. Learn it early and often.
No, that's style. SPSS.
What's that?
It's a statistical program.
Statistical
Or
package for
SAS.
social science.
Yeah, it can either be SPSS or SES, and if you want to just try it, PSPP is a freeware, it's identical, you can get it online, and grad students developed it. It's legal, it's not, it's fine, you can get it, but the interface is just like SPSS. And so the sooner you can get used to that technology, the easier it's gonna be. You don't have to hand compute anymore, right? I mean, plug the numbers in it, but
You should
knowing
take
that,
research methods with me.
yeah. Yeah, right.
Do you
Yes.
practice with that in your class?
No, because we have to have a license for it. It was too expensive.
PSPP, you have to bring up
Yeah, that one we can do, but I do make students do correlations by hand. Because you can see what happens to the numbers when you do it by hand.
Very true. Learn it by hand first. The tables, everything, do it all by hand first. Yeah, but I would say that technology is important.
I use that in my undergrad and my graduate program. It's really where you just put a bunch of data in, and then it tells you in the end if it's connected.
It's like Excel.
And
It's
reading
spreadsheet.
the spreadsheet, yeah, know how to do that, write it up.
What other publications should they follow?
DSM-5.
DSM-5?
At least have the current edition and
Yes.
nothing else.
You with
If you have the time to research enough on Google, or I use Google, whatever you do, you can find some of this stuff free, PDF forms of it free, not pirated, that's not what I mean. But some people actually put some of this stuff on there free. Early on, when a publication first comes out, not now, 2-3 years later, there's a good chance it's gone. They don't have it on there anymore. But a lot of times when it first comes out, somebody will put a free PDF format of it. And the publications that we're talking about, that's like between $200 and $500. So you can look for that stuff. Electronic health records, if I don't know if you have to have a license to get those, but if you can get trial versions of various forms of electronic health records and see what you like, what you don't, because once you get into actually doing it, whether it's private practice or you work with or for somebody, it's a lot better than trying to do it by hand. Some places still do it by hand, some places still, I think the Ridge requires some of their stuff still to be handwritten. You won't realize what it's like to try to fit documentation in to an average clinical day until you have to fit documentation in to an average clinical day. So anything that you can find that you're like, oh, I want that, you've got time now to look through that and see how all that stuff is done.
APA journals, let's say, become familiar. You can go to the APA website and KCREP, counseling, so you might want to just familiarize yourself. They accredit counseling programs. But
You might mention the importance of that for Kentucky.
yeah. KCREP, well, they lobbied, I know in Kentucky, that if you are not from a KCREP accredited counseling program, you cannot be a licensed counselor in Kentucky. And they've done these with different states. So if you want to go into a counseling program, this is going to be like clinical psych, a purely counseling psychology program, make sure that it's KCREP accredited, and that's CACREP. Because if you want to stay in the state and in practice later, you have to have gone to a KCREP accredited master or graduate program. So very, very important.
And there are schools in the state, graduate programs that offer counseling degrees that are not KCREP accredited.
And it would be terrible. They get a degree and then wouldn't be able to
It's not Kentucky.
They're only, I think, the last we checked was about 8 programs in the state that are accredited. So we can help you with that.
UK is not one of them.
No, UK counseling is not accredited. Through APA or KCREP, yeah, so, clinical psych is, but,
Yeah.
Um,
To be pretty particular about
yeah, so if you need help with that, before you would think of applying to one, Dr. McClellan and I can help you. We can show you which programs are accredited.
And you can go to the KCREP website and look it up.
Yes, you can do that too.
And it's important to notice what she said. So certain programs, all of UK is not, a certain program is. And when you're going into grad school, you are more applying to certain programs instead of into an entire school.
Right.
And so,
Specialized.
yeah. And so that's what when they were earlier talking about, like, figuring out what your identity is. That was some good advice that I got on early, was figure out which researchers who I would like to do research with them. So get to know their personality some, as well as the work that they're doing, figure out if I could fit in their lab or not. And so that was something that was really important for me when I was in my undergrad, was to make sure that, and then to learn that not every single program at the university that I thought I was applying to, because I was not applying really to the whole university, I was applying to a specific program. So that's really important to know as you consider going into your next steps, to make sure that you realize that it might look like you're applying to University of Kentucky, but really it's about a certain program and making sure that the program is accredited the way that you need it to
You could
be.
apply to counseling and clinical at UK, and they wouldn't have any idea that you did. That you're the same person applying to both programs. That's how little they would know to talk to each other.
We're totally separate.
I mean, it wouldn't come up. So they're just separate entities.
So you can apply to them. That's what you're saying,
Yeah, except
Yeah.
for counseling, which is accredited.
right?
School counseling is though, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
School psych
each
is.
one.
And EKU just lost their school psych program. We had some people who had applied, and that's another reason to apply to a lot of programs, because the person who did apply, they met the deadline, and the program shut down after that. So they couldn't take any of their applicants, and they didn't know. So if that had been the only program she had applied to, she would have been in a lot of trouble. That would have been it. So another reason to apply to a lot of different programs.
Yeah, that was a completely unforeseen situation,
Yeah. no.
but it was administration top down, money wise.
If you're going into the substance abuse part, SAMHSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, has, that's an excellent website, and they have a list of every evidence-based practice that exist. I don't know how often it's updated, but if any that come up through research is added to that list. So if it's on that list, then it's evidence-based, which means insurance companies are supposed to recognize it. Alcoholics Anonymous, big book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, if you're going to stay in that field, Narcotics Anonymous, basic text. And there are a lot of websites that will send you free, they have free subscriptions, and they will send you newsletters that update on everything that's going on in the substance abuse field, like when new drugs or overdose rates or drug trafficking stuff that's going on, like weekly or bi-weekly. You'll get all these updates, and there's no cost to it.
The SAMHSA site is a federal site, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good.
It's an official.
The publication, all kinds of publications.
There's a lot of free materials on it too.
We just have a few moments. Any last minute questions from the audience? Cool. All right, closing statements, anybody? Any last bit of pearl of wisdom you want to pass on to the next generation of professional?
Study hard. Work hard.
And find something that you love doing. I think
That
that's
you
one
can
of
live
the
with.
important things. Because if you love your work, it's not work, right? And if you absolutely love it, that's something I can say I do. I absolutely love my work. And so every new challenge is kind of exhilarating. It's never too trying, and especially if you get into this field, like clinical and counseling, you want to really love it.
It'll probably
Be
fit those down
fascinating.
days, right?
Yeah, it does. Be fascinated by it.
And if you want to keep loving it, set the boundaries. Take your vacation days, take your paid time off. Don't extend those work days more often than you have to. Try to avoid burnout. That helps keep you loving your job.
That's true. Self-care is so important.
So the senior project, what do you do? It's a class, right? So what is it, what is
You
it?
can choose between doing a research study, your own in research study, or doing a literature review, where you take a particular topic and you write about research as we know it.
You read everything on
Read
it
everything.
and then write up.
And so you want to kind of really narrow what you're going to write about. You wouldn't want to do something on depression, right? Because you have 100, 70 years research.
Yeah.
Before that. So, so it can be that for people who don't want to do a research study, but it's great if you can. And it doesn't have to be something that's really intimidating. You can do things that,
A simple online survey.
yeah.
It's usually what I recommend students do, because even if you do a little 10 item questionnaire, you're going to have data, and it's going to be plenty of work just to get people to take it. And even if you're just using descriptive statistics to summarize it in the results, that's plenty of work right there. You still have to do a lit review for the introduction section. It's just going to be as extensive,
Yes.
but it can be a hassle to do the research.
And you have
It's
to
a good thing, but
You have to go through the IRB process, which is really good too, just to know how
It's
that
another
goes.
step.
So,
So you have choices with it, and we usually tell students, pick something you're interested in. And chances are you might have written a paper on a similar topic before, but here you're taking it to a whole other level.
I think our mentor, Edie and I had the same mentor in graduate school.
At different
but we went
schools.
At different schools. He was Dr. Mark Cummings, and he's actually being awarded Mentor of the Year by the APA this year.
Yeah.
But that's exactly one of the things I remember him telling all his grad students. For your research, you're going to be dedicating a lot of your life to it. So make sure it's something that you're fascinated with and so you're interested in, because sometimes when you have to do revisions and revisions and revisions, that's tedious in and of itself. So choose a topic you really like.
And keep everything you write.
Yeah.
That was
That's true.
one of the best pieces of advice I got before I started. Keep everything you write.
Yeah, sometimes grad schools want a sample of your writing. Every once in a while, they'll say, send us a paper up as well, and then you gotta, I know a lot of you have it on the hard drive, but sometimes you don't, so you gotta keep those.
And if you find a focus and stick with that focus and end up in graduate school and maybe in a doctorate program, and you're like, oh, I wish I had that paper I wrote.
Or those
Yeah, it's a-
references, yeah.
Yeah, it pays to say that stuff.
All right, well, our time for today's Eagle Connect has come to a close. And so thank you all very much for giving your time to be here today and to being here for the students here and then online as well. Thank you all for joining us today. We've got, looks like, some more pizza back there, so please feel free to fill up. And if you did not sign in on the iPad at the door, please make sure that you do that so we can log your attendance. And thank you, everybody.